And there we are. Hi, everybody. Oh, welcome to Pagan Pathways, and this is your hashtag Goddess Speak. Today, we'll be talking about Inanna, Lilith, and Isis. And I'm pretty sure Inanna is first.
All right. Well, like I was telling you guys before we got started, I have like 4 pages worth of information on her. So where to begin? Okay, Inanna was a very ancient Mesopotamian goddess. Okay, she was associated with love, beauty, sex, war, justice, and political power. And am I over here? I want to make sure I'm looking at. There we go. Sorry, guys. And actually, let me do this really quick, guys. Let me go like this. This was a depiction that was done. Somebody, I'm not even sure who did this. This was on Pinterest. This was a depiction of either Inanna, or many other people knew her as also Ishtar. And then there's obviously more than that, but I wanted to show you some of the depictions really quick as I'm going through this. So there she is. This is her symbol over here, her star, 8-pointed star. And sometimes it's a 6-pointed star, which makes me think of like the Merkaba, which is an upside down and then an upright triangle that come together and create an actual, Merkaba, which is supposed to represent like the male and the female principle all brought together in like union, which makes sense considering the fact of her being associated with sex, very much with sex. She was originally worshipped in Sumer and then was later worshipped in the Akkadians. By the Akkadians, the Babylonians, and the Assyrians under the name Ishtar. She was also known as the Queen of Heaven. And she was the patron goddess of Inanna Temple at the city of Uruk, which was her main cult center. She's also associated with the planet Venus. And her most prominent symbols are the lion, which you see her actually standing her foot on top of the lion over here. And then, of course, she's with the wings because she's known for also being a winged goddess. And with her weapons, she's carrying a weapon, and then she's got several weapons on her back. And she's donning a horned helmet. Very interesting. Let me show you some other. Here's another one here. Let's see if I can make this any bigger for you guys. Ooh, now that's big.
Yeah, but you can see it nice and clear.
Yeah. She was the main goddess of the Sumerian pantheon and the patron goddess of the city Uruk, which is now modern day Warka in Iraq, which is interesting. And we probably should say hi to everyone. Let's see. Hi, Johnny. Hi, Coastal Animist. B and Lennon. All right. And Lavender. Hi, guys. So this particularly says around 2300 BC, but what I read in other things is that the earliest that they ever seen her in history was around 4000 BC. So that was roughly, a little over 6,000 years ago. And the ancient Sumerians are like the oldest known civilization that we have to date that has like writing and stuff. So they're the oldest records of anything that we have right now that's been preserved. Some of her notable symbols, like I said, is the 8-rayed star. lions. Venus, she's known as Venus and the morning and the evening star. Yeah, she's also known with the war and the axe and the bow were her symbols. Oh, another thing about her is she loves lapis lazuli. And as a matter of fact, one of the things later on that I talk about is she actually says she got Enki drunk. And then there's other stuff that I have read that says that she seduced him also while getting him drunk in order to take the Mies. And I was trying to find where that was in here. But the Mies were like a set of like virtues or things that they used in order to actually create like civilization. And that's what she got from him. And because of that, she was known as the most powerful goddess. And Ishtar, in comparison, she was also known as the most powerful goddess, even more powerful than like her counterpart gods, which I find really freaking cool, to be honest with you. Let me see if I can find it though.
In some places, they're saying that Inanna and Ishtar are the same. They're the same goddess, just different names. And it's funny because right before the live started, you had said that you believed that, or that she reminded you of the Strength card. And Lavender had asked if she's associated with the Strength card.
I don't know. I mean, I've not ever heard that before, that she is. But that was automatically what I thought when I've seen all these other pictures. Now here's another picture of her. But this is also a very common depiction of Lilith. Many times when you type in Lilith, this is who comes up as well. And there's ties in there, which I'm not going to talk about because that is for Cortney to talk about. But I find that very interesting. Sorry. And there's the boy causing problems.
What is
always
this
with the star and the foot on there, though. She was, what's that? Here is a vase. Let me see if I can get up a little bit closer so that you can see some of the detail in here. Yeah, I mean, like nudity alert. This is a vase that is showing depictions of many men that were like doing offerings to her. Like, I mean, just they would line up in order to bring gifts to her because she was like, she was essentially the first person that like created like prostitution and sex and of course war. You didn't want to mess with her because she could be mean too. Yeah. And this was from, gosh, if I remember right, I mean, this was like 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. I think that's it. Oh, here's another one. Okay. Oh, that's too little for you guys to see. Let me blow it up. Where she is fighting with a... Oh, no, that's a guy fighting with a bull. Never mind. Oh, well, there are depictions. Let me get off of here. There are actually stories of her also being a male counterpart as well. Did you read some of that, Cortney?
A little bit. I heard that she could have associations with the male counterpart.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it says. She was believed to have stolen the Mies, which represented all the positive and negative aspects of civilization, from Enki, the god of wisdom. She was also believed to have taken over the Inanna or Inanna temple from An, the god of the sky. An is the same as Anu. That was like a shorter name for him. So there are different stories that circulate. Mithra. Okay. Okay. They're saying that's Mithra. So there are stories that she is the daughter of An or Anu, which would mean that she is the sister of Enlil and Enki. But then there's other stories that say that she was the daughter of Enlil, who is associated with like Yahweh in the Bible, in the Garden of Eden, or associated with, the child of Enki, who was considered like the serpent in the Garden of Eden, right? And the one that was the engineer who created humanity. So that's a little bit iffy. It's hard to tell whether she was or wasn't. One of the stories also that is associated with her, and I'm not going to read it out of here, I'm just going to tell you what I read, was that she, after one of her sisters, who was like queen or a head honcho down in the underworld, her husband had passed away. And this is from Inanna's Descent, the story of Inanna's Descent, which she's like most famous for. Well, when he passed away, Inanna wanted to go down into the underworld. But unless you actually had a special invitation to go down there, you could not come back up. You were not supposed to be able to come back up. So before she went down, and she had like a handmaiden, or it doesn't really say for sure, but like her best friend kind of thing, Ninshur or something like that. All these names are kind of wild. But she told her, if I don't come back within 3 days, then I need you to contact the gods, namely Enki, so that they can come and rescue me, so to speak. So that's what happened. She didn't show back up because her sister, with a like council of like 7 down below that were gods of something. I can't remember the names. Oh, okay. I know what that was about. The bull. It says she unleashed the bull of heaven. But in order for her to be released, somebody else had to take her place. So this is also where other associations between, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Her husband, she was married to, what's his name? I'm sorry, guys. I just got too many notes. I'll find it. Dumuzid was his name. She was married to him. And so when she was released, they released her with some other demons or creatures from the underworld, right? Because somebody else had to take her place. That was just how it worked. So when she came back and she noticed that everyone else was like in just like plain garbs, clothing, like in mourning because she had died, because they killed her in the underworld. So in order for her to come back, they had to resuscitate her and then allow her to come back up. And then when they got up there, somebody else took her place. Well, her husband, he was still like in his regular regal, clothing and everything else. And he had taken rule. And so she was like, okay, I'm going to show you. So he took her place. She's like, okay, he's going to take my place. So that's when he went down into the underworld in her place. But because after hearing him talking about, baby, I love you, what have you, this is my version of it. She said, okay, so half of the year he was allowed to come up and his sister would take his place in the underworld, which reminds me a lot of like Persephone and Hades, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Coastal said that in a comment. It reminds him of that. There's so many stories that correlate, even all the way to the Christian Bible and some in Islam. I mean, all the stories are very much alike.
Yes. So she had also, Inanna was the enforcer of divine justice. So she destroyed, although she was told that she wasn't supposed to, she did it anyways. She destroyed Mount Eba for having challenged her authority. So she unleashed her fury upon the gardener, so-and-so, after he had raped her. So one of the things that they also say about her, as far as the pantheon goes, is many of the other gods and goddesses were known for like almost like being stagnant. They didn't really go anywhere else. They were like patrons of like certain cities, and that's where it stayed. Not her. She was like active. She was moving along. There was always stuff that she was doing. So you see her pop up. That's why she probably became much more popular. Sorry. And then also in other things turned into like Ishtar, and Ishtar was known for being like super powerful as well. And that's where a lot of those depictions are either her or Ishtar, or one and the same. So I think that pretty much cuts it down for you guys. I mean, there's other stuff too, but.
Coastal says, which makes me wonder why so few Christians are willing to study other mythologies. I think the reason for that is because they're told from the very beginning it is the highest sin to have other gods, and if studying them they would change, and then it would cause them to burn in hell for all eternity. Yeah. You can't even talk to most Christians about some of the stories from the Bible that correlate to much older religions. So, I mean, you can get some open-minded ones that will discuss it with you, but for the most part, they'll just be like, nope, that's not true. I don't care what you have as facts. They're not going to listen.
Exactly. You know what? It does say something else here, too, with it being about the sexuality, because it was very much about the sexuality for her. It says transgender women and intersex men were heavily involved in the cult of Inanna/Ishtar. During Sumerian times, a set of priests known as Gala worked in Inanna's temples, where they performed elegies and lamentations. Gala took female names, spoke in the Amosal dialect, which was traditionally reserved for women, and appeared to have engaged in homosexual intercourse.
Nice.
So that's the oldest known civilization, right?
The oldest known text, too.
Right. And that is what they performed in there. So how is that unnatural? I'm just saying, right?
It's a sad form of psychological abuse.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I mean, it is. It's a way to control the masses and make people afraid, and because they're out of fear, because I've heard several say, well, I would rather believe and die and it not be true than to not believe, die, and it be true. So they are so afraid they're going to burn in hell that it is a condition, and it's conditioned through fear. So
exactly. So that, like I said, that was depicted from like 4000 BC. And then I think the next one could be either of you, actually.
Well, just so you know, I did do some research, like when you talked about Inanna, because she was one of the goddesses I didn't know much about. Mm-hmm. I mean, I knew she was a goddess. I couldn't tell you anything. But during that time, Sumeria most definitely is the oldest civilization according to the History Channel, and they have all the first wheel, the first writing, just all of that stuff. So everything did come out of Sumeria. Doesn't mean there wasn't other civilizations, but they were the first one that was considered civilization with writing and technology.
Some of the slaves and or priestesses and stuff like that they had that were in the temples, they were like branded with her star too, the 8-pointed star.
So what are some things about Inanna that most people, when they worship her, why are they called to her? What types of things is she related to? What kinds of invocation work, that type of thing?
Fertility, because of being sex. But here's the thing though, the thing about Inanna was most everything said that she did not have children. I think there was like one story that said in a little passing that so-and-so was her son. But like I said, she was actually worshipped first obviously Sumeria, ancient Sumer, but then Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians. So things change, you know, as the story went on. But also, she had a twin brother who was, let me see. Utu, the god of the sun and justice, who is later known as Shamash in East Semitic languages. In Sumerian texts, Inanna and Utu are shown as extremely close. In fact, their relationship frequently borders on incestuous, which is another thing that leads to what many other like gods and goddesses were known for, was keeping the bloodline clean by, you know, procreating with your brother or sister. Oh, also, Inanna was also worshipped as one of the Sumerian war deities. One of her hymns declares, she stirs confusion and chaos against those who are disobedient to her, speeding carnage and inciting the devastating flood, clothed in terrifying radiance. It is her game to speed conflict and battle. Untiring, strapping on her sandals, battle itself was occasionally referred to as the dance of Inanna.
I like that.
I know, I did too. I was like, yeah, she was bad.
So she was a warrior goddess. She would be good for defensive magic and those types of things.
Yes, and although she was known as love and sex and stuff like that, she was not really known for marriage, because she was known to have many lovers. As a matter of fact, she was known to also treat her lovers poorly. You know, pretty much taking what she wanted. And
very much that female domination like energy there that she brings, which is why I thought that she was pretty much another face also of the goddess Babylon.
Yeah, yes. Let's see.
Quite cool.
So in Uruk, Inanna was usually regarded as the daughter of the sky god An. This is where the confusion is, because some say she was, some say she was the granddaughter. But in the Isen tradition, she is usually described as the daughter of the moon god Nana, who was later known as Sin. In literary texts, she is sometimes described as the daughter of Enlil or the daughter of Enki. In some later stories, Inanna/Ishtar is the sister of Ishkur, Hadad, the god of storms. And in Hittite mythology, Ishtar, the sister of Takub, was the Hittite storm god. So there's other stuff also, like myths, like the poem of Enki and the world order says, begins by describing the god Enki and his establishment of the cosmic organization of the universe. Towards the end of the poem, Inanna comes to Enki and complains that she has assigned a domain that he hasn't assigned a domain and special powers to all the other gods except for her. So she declares that she had been treated unfairly, and Enki responds by telling her that she already had a domain and that he does not need to assign her one. Showing she was already powerful. Maybe she just, because they also depict her as very young, very youthful. So she's also very much in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is kind of like an older version of like the flood story in the Bible. And I think many scholars believe that they actually took that from the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is older.
Noah's Ark, yeah. It was definitely recorded before the Bible. I'm not saying that it happened. I'm just saying that it was written before the Bible was.
Yeah.
Oh, here's an interesting thing. I think that you had also heard, Cortney. It says that in the myth of Inanna and Hulupu tree, found in the preamble to the Epic of Gilgamesh, Enkidu and the Netherworld centers around a young Inanna not yet stable in her power. It begins with the Hulapoo tree, which Kramer identifies as a willow tree, growing on the banks of the river Euphrates. Inanna moves the tree to her garden in Uruk with the intention to carve it into a throne once it's fully grown. But the tree grows and matures, but the serpent, who knows no charm, the Enzu bird, and Lilith, who was the Sumerian forerunner of Lilith to Jewish mysticism or folklore, all take up residence within the tree, so causing Inanna to cry with sorrow. So the hero Gilgamesh, who is in this story, is portrayed as her brother, comes along and slays the serpent, causing the Anzu bird and Lilith to flee. So I'm thinking that was like the Garden of Eden, another depiction of all that.
Before going further, you know, there was a female ruler in Sumeria who ruled for 100 years, and she's the only female to ever do so. Do you wonder if that was the goddess portraying herself as a queen just so she could rule and then got bored and moved forward?
Or maybe that because she was so powerful, because she did become the most powerful of all the gods, which I find interesting, even more powerful than Anu, who was supposedly the ruler of Nibiru. You know, the Anunnaki when they came here. So she had more power. So maybe she just said, you know what? I'm putting this woman in power here and nobody's going to question it. You know?
Well, 100 years back then was a long time, right? So, I mean, there had to be a hand of the god or goddess involved in that. So, I mean, I'm just...
Well, they did say in those days that they lived a lot longer. It was after the Tower of Babel fell that, well, after Noah's Ark too, that man changed from living 1,000 years to like 120 years. So who knows what happened there? I don't know. Interesting.
And yeah, to elaborate on the tree thing, I just wanted to say that I had found that Lilith resided at the roots of that tree. I found that interesting, and it was under Lilith too as well.
There is tons of correlation, and I the more that you talk about Inanna, the more I see it, because Isis became very powerful by tricking the god, and she was even with him. So I just see so many correlations between them. But before we move on to that, are you ready to move on to Lilith?
I
do it.
Okay. So before we start with Lilith, I'm going to play a very quick video that Cortney put together with some information. So here we go.
That was excellent.
That was a very good video with lots of information packed in there.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of get out like the lore that we hear about her all the time, you know, about her being Adam's first wife and the whole Eden story, because I feel like we all know it. It's a common story. So just for those that haven't really heard about it, I wanted to put that in the video and then elaborate more on like Lilith's origins and her ties in Samaria and with the goddess Ishtar, or Inanna, that Rachele just told you about. Okay, breath. So Lilith has been feared by many due to challenging and primitive energy. But her truest origin dates back to Samaria, the first civilization known with writing, which we've mentioned. Anyway, Lilith's energy is powerful, beautiful, and destructive. The connection of her energy to us links our primitive consciousness. Inanna, a Sumerian deity known also as Ishtar, as well, was a goddess of love, war, carnal lust, and sometimes Lilith is depicted as the same deity as them two, but I believe her to be the handmaiden of Ishtar. That comes up a bit more commonly in our research, so I just did want to mention that. Sorry guys, lost my place. Okay. Ishtar was also known in my research to kind of be a mistress of blood and also have that loving, protective nature along with fertility and growth. Now they could be speaking from her and Lilith having the same face there, or Lilith, but you know, I think that's just to each its own on what they want to believe about that. Very much a powerful, balanced, and pure primal energy. Like, I can't stress that enough. Every time I have worked with her, like, that is the energy you feel. So Lilith, as the maiden of Ishtar, or Inanna, the demoness that resides at the bottom of the tree, which is what we had just talked about. So in the Sumerian form, her name was known as Lilith, and then later in cults, Lamashtu. And there are other names and faces of Lilith, but as like the Hebrew queen of the demons, but Lil translates to spirit flowing. And in Samaria, Lilith was basically maiden of the wind. Ishtar and Inanna is the embodiment of domination, a equal feminine face of the divine, passion, war, and love. So some Luciferians believe that they are all one and the same, but I don't personally. Lilith has been depicted as half beautiful lady and half owl with an owl head. Ishtar has also been depicted the same way in Sumerian plaques, which when we got the same tablet there, that shows that. She was also depicted in Sumerian incantations as the daughter of Inanna and ties into the Anunnaki gods. Now Lamashtu is who she was known as a bit later and was also depicted as the sister of Ishtar under the name Lamashtu. So she's known in the Sumerian tablets as a divine deity, you know, needless to say, or the handmaiden, but she has some sort of divinity there. And also depicted as a demon or demoness, or demonic divinity. So Lamashtu was kicked out of the heavens due to her desire to drink blood. This depiction that I'm about to explain here with Lamashtu is where I feel like a lot of the fear or the stigma with Lilith came from, because Lamashtu was very much a feared deity and was very bloodthirsty. And according to this lore, that is why she was sent from the heavens. Lamashtu was becoming a chaotic energy disrupting the cosmos and the heavens, and the Anunnaki could not accept the disruption. This made her a free energy of divine origins. But she could no longer rule in the heavens or with the divine, making her a daimon, those who have abilities outside of human race but aren't quite a god or goddess. Later, she became Lilith, from Lilith or Lamashtu, the queen of demons and succubi, incubi, and vampires alike. There is also other depictions of her, known as one of the 7 deities of chaos, or even one of the 7 sisters that visited Solomon, which, you know, we could talk about later in a different video. So, or we'll go on and on all night, guys. But in Greek, she is known as Gelu, which I found quite interesting.
And that's one of the names that I mentioned, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. That's why I was waiting through it all excited, like, oh God, connects even more. So Lamashtu was feared by many ancient religions, but Lilith modernly is depicted by pagans as kind of like a softer deity, but I've kind of noticed. I think that's a very much to each their own thing as well. Yet on my path, she is a darker essence, especially my experience. She doesn't really terrify the practitioner in my experience either. It's just an unsettled, chaotic energy. The oldest version of Lilith that I could find was 3000 BC as a class of spirits called the Lilith. And these were a wide variety of spirits known as diamond spirits. And they are associated with the owl, the eagle, the lion, water, violent storms, disease, and destruction in nature. So, yeah, I went all over, and this is pretty much the oldest origins I can find of Lilith here. And I did want to just mention a bit in my notes about, she was also depicted as Ninlil, as an Anunnaki origin, and it meant Lady Wind, Ninlil. And then Enlil, who you had described, was depicted as the sun, apparently, and wearing a crown with horns, or as devil. Which, I mean, uniquely, that ties into the Eden story as well, pertaining Lilith, because does she not get with Samal after she leaves Eden and he becomes her consort, which could also be another face or depiction of the devil.
I'm looking for the devil card right now in the tarot because it had the devil has boobs.
Now, Enlil was known as a friendly and destructive deity to mankind, but, you know, I think he's kind of neutral there. And as the story goes, he had raped Ninlil, which is being depicted as Lilith in this story that I found. And oddly enough, Rachele had mentioned that happening in one of the lore stories she had found. And Anu sent him to the underworld on Earth from the cosmos as punishment. So my whole guess and theory here that I get from this lore is perhaps because if this, you know, attack on her was true, and then she was sent to Eden to be Adam's first wife, it would explain a lot toward her resentment in being subservient, or, you know, not to mention that of divine power, I wouldn't want to downgrade either to a human, just my personal opinion, but not in a forceful way anyway, you know. But yeah, so that is about what I have, and I very much believe that they all carry that dominant female energy, that female power, and I really, really respect that out of these tablets and the lore about these goddesses.
There was a couple of things that I did want to mention really quick. When you were asking about associations and other things, Jess, rosettes were also associated very heavily with Inanna and Ishtar. And So were the dove. There was a depiction of a giant dove coming down, and doves were also prominent animal symbols associated with Inanna and Ishtar. Doves are shown on cultic objects associated with Inanna as early as the beginning of the 3rd millennium. Lead dove figurines were discovered in the temple of Ishtar in Assur, dating to the 13th century, and a painted fresco from Mari, Syria, shows a giant dove emerging from a palm tree in the temple of Ishtar, indicating that the goddess herself was sometimes believed to take on the form of a dove. And she was also believed to take on the form of a cat as well, and that she was fighting the serpent. I forgot about that part. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So interesting, because in the story of Isis tricking the god, there's a serpent that was involved in that. I'm just saying.
Interesting.
For you, Cortney, I'm sorry I cut out for a minute. Did you talk about what Lilith is associated with, and things that if people are working with her that she respects and likes or whatnot? Because you do work with Lilith, correct?
Oh, yes.
Right.
One of the best things that I found that he really enjoys, I mean, a lot of other offerings that are out there and available do work. I mean, but from my personal experience, she very much likes orgasms, bodily fluids as type of offerings. And yeah, there's a lot we could go into with this, but I really just can't think right now. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
So for Ishtar, it did say that women across the ancient Near East worshipped Ishtar by dedicating to her cakes baked in ashes. It says a dedication of this type is described in an Akkadian hymn. Several clay cake molds discovered at Mari are shaped like naked women with large hips, clutching their breasts. Yeah, I mean, because she was very much known as like the goddess of sex, sexual rights, sacred marriages, but another thing that I find is really interesting, when I said that about the devil, I thought it was the regular Rider-Waite tarot. It's not. It's the Thoth Tarot. And the information about that, when you read about that, is there was like 3 different things. The first one was it Osiris? Then it was Isis, and then it was Horus. Something along that lines. Was Horus her husband, or was
Osiris is Isis's husband and Horus is her child?
Okay, so that's how it was. It was first first Osiris, then Isis. And even on the backs, it looks like a cross on the backs of them, but it's actually not. It's like a box that's unfolded on the backs of the cards of the Thoth Tarot. And it's a rosette that's on it. And they very much talk about, just from what I've read so far, about that combination of 3.
Oh, I remember now.
What?
Oh, go ahead.
What I was gonna say, I'm so sorry that happened, guys. No, I was just gonna mention a few incense that she actually does like too, and that's frankincense, myrrh, and of course dragon's blood. And if you're going to work with Lilith, I highly suggest it in a new moon. Seems like it's easy to remember, but dead in the middle of it.
I mean, listen, we're not 20, so I think it's pretty normal to forget stuff. I mean, at least it is for me. So
I quit having birthdays at 20.
I mean, I stopped at 29, so.
Yeah.
All right. But before we move on to Isis, I'm going to play a little clip that I've made for everybody.
Excellent.
That was just a little bit of highlights that I wanted to put out there. And then probably afterward, I will post it to Facebook and Instagram so anybody can look at it at their leisure. Now, Isis is known as the goddess of 10,000 names. And it's very common for people to think that Isis is every goddess, and that every goddess is just a part of her personality, and people call on them so they don't have to call on the one deity. I don't know how they think that makes it different, but that's a common belief. And Isis was a goddess over everything, but most notably women, showing them work and work ethic, birth, and magic. Isis was powerful, like very powerful, but yeah, there's so much to know. And look, I just got myself sidetracked, Cortney, so I just took a play right out of your book. In my defense, though, I'm on a bunch of cold medicine.
Yeah. I didn't really want to say it until you guys had a chance to talk about your goddesses, but I think that Lavender had made mention up above something about like her being like the female, let's see, because of her ancientness. Let me put it on here. I think of Inanna like the exclamation point of goddesses, like her name itself is a complete and final sentence. I mean, in essence, as we go along with this particular Goddess Speak hashtag week after week after week, are we going to find so many different correlations between these? Because another one that was associated with Inanna and Ishtar and Lilith is also Aphrodite. And Aphrodite, another name for Isis, is Aphrodite, right? They're associated with each other, right? So
Isis popularity spread all the way from Afghanistan to England. So she was all over the continent. She wasn't just in one area. And I don't know. I mean, it's very possible that Isis and Inanna are the same goddess, and that as Inanna moved to Egypt or went to Egypt or whatever, she just became Isis, and then her popularity spread even further. I mean, I don't know that that's true, but it's definitely plausible because, I mean, and there's about a 200-year difference between the written language in Sumeria and Egyptian, and those are the two oldest, right? But Sumeria happened first, so maybe it was Inanna who came to Egypt. They named her Isis, and she taught the people how to read and write, how to do lots of things, and she brought a bunch to that country. The oldest written text in Egypt mentions Isis, but they mention her as a death keeper who helped kings move on to the next life or wherever they were going after death. And it wasn't until much later that she was more popular after that. And then she started to help common folk too. I think that's because of the trade occurring across the Mediterranean. There were a lot of goddess cults spreading to different regions. I mean, I that's true. There was a lot of goddess stuff spreading, but I mean, the stories are almost the same, and I'm gonna guess that they probably already had maybe gods. I mean, we just don't know for sure. Just because there wasn't written language doesn't mean that they didn't worship something.
Well, I think it's funny because Inanna was also known and revered for being somebody about life and death, being a goddess of life and death, because of her most famous thing that she is known as is the descent, Inanna's descent into the underworld. And because she was able to come back up, then she was known as like the resurrection and all that other stuff, life and death. So it's funny, 200 years later, that Isis is also known for the same thing.
Well, Isis is Rise of Power is in a story, and there's a couple different versions, but this was the version that I wrote down because simply, I mean, there's just so many versions of everything. But the god Ra she wanted to trick him into giving his real name, which supposedly held power. So she set a serpent on the path to bite him when he walked through, and he did. Well, Ra is the god of everything, so he legit could heal himself, or at least he thought, but because she used his spittle or blood, whichever one, to create the serpent, he was not able to heal himself. So he calls on her, and she tells him, the only way I can heal you is to give your real name. He tried using some of his lower names. She said it wouldn't work. He finally relented, gave in his real name. She did heal him, but then she held all the power that he held simply because she knew his name.
Well. Let me just so freaking excited. First of all, okay, a lot of the stuff that I have been like exposed to over the last few years with cosmic disclosure and aliens, Anunnaki, the blue avians, and I talk about this, the law of one, right? That material that was actually channeled from the Ra group in the 1980s, which were the same Ra, blue avian aliens from ancient Egypt. So the same Ra. Ra was not necessarily one, but many. And the serpent could have been the Anunnaki or the reptilians, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? And maybe that name because he was known as the sun god. Ra was the sun god. And Anu was known as like the sun or in the sky. Interesting.
I look at them, a lot of those you just described, as like even a same another face of Lucifer. Because every time you describe it, Lucifer's illumination just pops out like, oh, getting Lucifer vibes, you know? But
go ahead.
yeah, and another thing I was going to say is I also read somewhere that they think the Anunnaki may have been responsible for helping with the construction of pyramids and other knowledge in Egypt. So again, correlating to Isis or Egypt, you know. So I thought that's a neat little fact to play around with.
Jared, no, we didn't freeze. Something happened with the Facebook
oh, it's not
broadcast.
working.
I don't know. It's working now, but it did do something. Lavender said it would be interesting to see how these would overlap with deities in ancient China. It would. I don't know anything about Chinese ones. And Coastal said the origin of magical names in Wiccan paganism. That probably is true because these are widely known facts about Isis and, you know, her story. And they definitely say you should have a magical name that nobody knows, because it protects you during rituals and rites. I mean, I guess that's a good correlation. Isis's parents were named Geb, who was an earth god, and Nut, who was the sky god. But in some of the text, it says Ra was her father, and he was her daughter, and that's why she is the Eye of Ra. She's also known as the Eye of Horus, who was her son.
Well, because wasn't Horus supposed to be a reincarnation of Osiris?
I don't know. I don't know about that, but I know that
I think so.
That Horus chopped her head off, and she was magically
Horus chopped her head off?
Yeah, Horus chopped off Isis's head. So, okay, so let's start at the beginning. When Horus and Isis were married and living happy, Set got jealous. So then he decides to take his brother, put him in a wooden box, line it with lead, and throw his ass in the bottom of the Nile. Isis goes and looks for her husband, finds him, brings him back. So then Set gets pissed off and chops him up into little pieces and scatters him over the world. Isis's sister and her go and look for him and find all of his pieces of his body, except for his penis. Well, she magically puts him back together and makes him whole, but he's wrapped in bandages like a mummy. And he has to descend to the underworld and be king over the dead because of it. Well, Isis magically gets impregnated with Horus and gives birth. She has to run and hide and protect Horus from Set. And when Horus becomes old enough to take his rightful position as king, there's a big battle. Well, Isis then loses her nerve to kill Set, and then Horus kills Set and chops off her damn head. Later on, he forgives her after she comes back magically. But Isis is very magical, as I'm saying. She is like super duper powerful, and yeah. But that's the story, so.
I like that version.
I've always been attracted to Isis ever since I was a little girl. Always.
Coastal says Horus was born when Isis was pregnant with a magical golden phallus. It depends on where you get that information, because there's more than one story, and that's why I said I picked the story that correlates best for me, because there's several and we really don't have any facts.
You know, something else that we should be discussing on one of the future, even one of these, is how many depictions are there of women that are virgin births, that, you know, are impregnated without any actual, you know.
There are numerous ones.
And what do you think that is? You know what I think that is? I bet you can guess.
Peter.
Needle.
Pretending on
alien. Yeah.
So
DNA manipulation.
when you showed me the star of Inanna, I asked you what kind of star that was, because Isis is correlated with the dog star. That's a constellation. As a matter of fact, in Egypt,
right?
Huh?
In the constellation of the Sirius star.
Yeah. And that's where they talk about she's the light of her father's eye, which is Ra. So it's confusing because some places say Geb is her father, but other places say Ra is, and maybe they both are. I don't know. I mean, they're the gods. They can do what they want, right? But in Egypt, they will not bury their dead for 70 days because the star disappears from the sky for 70 days. 35 days before and 35 days after. So for 70 days, they will not bury their dead because it's known as the gateway to the next life. And they feel like that next life is, that door is closed, so they don't bury their dead. And she is related with that, and she is called the Nile star, or the star of Isis.
You know, another thing that I heard about that, about the like Ankh, is it was supposed to be some sort of like weapon or some sort of device that helped people. The reason it helped them to have like immortality was because it like would take their consciousness. That's how they would do everlasting life, is they could transform their consciousness into another body. And I told you I had a dream probably about a year ago that I actually, and it was Egyptian, and I was up like in a pyramid looking over like the side of it, and there was a pit down below with a whole bunch of bodies down there, just, and they called them sleeves. And they said, okay, because I was in between one life to another, and they said, okay, go ahead and pick who you want your mate's sleeve to be in this next life. So I was looking through all of them for the next sleeve. Weird.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, before I forget to mention, I am going to say Isis can very much be used for any spell or ritual you're doing, but she is great for protection magic for mothers who are in labor, and if you're trying to hone your magical crafting. Those are some really big ones, but you can invoke her for anything. She also prefers cinnamon as a offering to her. So It's always good to know those things, and sometimes it's hard to find those things.
I was telling you guys beforehand something that an idea that you could do. I got this from like the Hobby Lobby. I think it was like, or did I get this? It was either Michael's or Hobby Lobby.
I'm pretty sure it was Michael's because when you came home, you called me and told me about it.
Yeah, and I got this for like $3 and something, $3.99 or something like that. And so I have been working on these. I just got some more clay. I haven't baked these yet, but this is actually the symbol for like good fortune or great fortune. Mm-hmm. But actually putting it on top of a box, baking it, doing whatever you're going to do and decorating your box. And you can make that like a dedication box or a tiny altar to whatever God, like if you're taking like the 8-pointed star, which Inanna's star, and Lilith, I know, also has her own sigil. Many other gods and goddesses might have a sigil or a symbol. It could be an offering box, what have you, spell box, whatever. I mean, it's really cool, right?
That is such a wonderful idea, because also not only for just dedication, but like people could put their ritual supplies pertaining to that deity in there for their rituals or ceremonial magic, and it'll all have to be prepped and prepared in that. That's an awesome idea, Rachele.
Dollar Tree currently right now has little boxes like that. They're okay, well, I would get up and look for it, but I don't want to. But it's almost the same size as that, and it's $1.
Where are you at, Coastal? You're not in America?
I think is the UK.
Ah.
Yeah, he says, I'm jealous of American pricing at Michael's. Well, I'm not, because a lot of times their stuff is overpriced, but you can find good deals in the clearance aisle and when they have coupons and the ads for 50% off.
Mm-hmm.
He's in Canada.
Okay. Yeah. So does anybody have anything to add?
Or how about this? If you have goddesses you want to hear about, let us know, because we are doing this Goddess Speak every single week on Wednesday at Eastern Standard Time. Double or triple it for Canadians. I mean, that really does suck. I'm sorry. You guys don't have a dollar store?
No, we
Hobby Lobby.
We don't have a Dollar Tree. We have the Pound Shop or other little crafty stores, but you can find all of that in there. So
I'm jealous of Canadian pricing of Medicare. I'll trade you. Sorry. But the Pound Store, I just seen somebody on YouTube do a video, and she had some really great. She got a little trinket box with a pentagram already on it. She got they had a little kit with incense and shit in it, and it came from a dollar store over there. But he's in Canada, so he's on the other continent. He's on our continent.
Yeah. So yeah. That was pretty cool.
It comes in British Columbia. You can also pay a monthly premium. Coastal, I mean, how close is that to California? Because you literally can make a day trip to the dollar store. Just saying.
Oh, he's talking about the pricing of the medical stuff, though.
I know, but he was talking because Lavender said she's jealous of Canadian pricing for medical care. He was responding to her, but I was responding to him before because he's jealous of the pricing at Michael's. But if he come into California, which is actually pretty close, or even Williston, North Dakota from Canada is only 20 minutes. So if you come into the United States for a shopping trip, I mean, I don't know if you can right now, but eventually everything will open back up. I just don't know how far he is from the border.
I know that our medical insurance is about $1,200 a month is what we pay for our insurance.
Family insurance can be up to $1,700 a month. When all 5 of my kids were home and we were going to have to pay for it, it was $1,700 a month. And that's been years.
Yours is free over here with NHS.
And on top of that, our taxes that we pay out are close to 32%. Yeah. On top of $1,200 a month. So
Cigar boxes are great too. They are. I have a cigar box I picked up the other day at a Goodwill or thrift store, and I think I only paid $1 for it.
The Morgan.
Yep, you.
Rhiannon.
Oh, I'm on it with the Morgan and Bass because those are both deities I work with on a regular basis. Gia, Demeter, and Rihanna. Do you guys know anything about those goddesses? I do Gia.
Oh, yeah, as Mother Earth.
Here.
Demeter. I don't know a whole bunch about Demeter other than the fact of, you know, that she's in the underworld with Hades half of the year. And then half of the year she comes up. And her mother is, oh, no. That's Persephone. Demeter's her mother. Yeah. Yeah. That's about all I know.
I don't know, but it would be fun to do the research. And I like the little hinge boxes with latches that you can get at the dollar stores. Yeah, see, that's what I was talking about. They have them for $1 and they're about the same size.
Yeah.
Freya.
Freya. Yes.
Shelby would like that one because she's all about Freya.
Freya's cool.
Yeah.
Who else?
I've worked with a Morgan. She put me in timeout recently for slacking. Really?
Where is it?
I've never had an issue with Morgan like that. She's always just, Morgan for me is always just like in your face, real fast. She's going to tell you what she needs to. And then if you don't take her advice, too bad what happens at the end of it. That's always her attitude, in my opinion, where Morgan is concerned.
I got an idea. I had to find it. I had to go digging. You want to draw which ones we're going to do? Goddesses?
No, I don't care.
Or at least one of them, or two of them. What have you?
Everyone,
Oops. This is throwing them all over the place.
I don't know.
Here's one of them that just came up. Hera.
Hera.
I like her.
She was kind of
she's
kind of vindictive, isn't she?
Yeah.
Is Hera the wife of Zeus?
Yes.
She was vindictive and did
like turn a lot of women into different things because of having an affair with her husband.
I mean,
Something I
yeah,
do.
oh, yeah.
All right. Here's another one that came up. Oh, the sun.
I can't see it.
YHI.
No. She's a sun goddess.
Yeah, she's
Careless, jealous, and vindictive. She just doesn't put up with cheating. Right, but she doesn't punish her husband who owes her loyalty. She punishes women who he sometimes rapes and sometimes tricks.
Yep. Oh, and here's the other one that came up.
So, Persephone.
So do you guys want to do those three, or do you want to just pick one? What do you think?
I don't care. I'll do the sun one. What was her name? Let me write it down.
I'll do Hera if you want.
What is it?
YHI.
YHI.
Let me tell you who she is. She's number 51.
Guys, did you see that? It's going to be Hera, that YHI, and I'm going to find the pronunciation for that, and Persephone.
When you shine. She's the Aboriginal Australian sun goddess.
Australian.
Yep, Aboriginal.
I mean, it all sounds good.
Yeah, sounds interesting.
She's will be a different one that people haven't heard about.
Yeah.
So, just so everybody knows, next week, Goddess Speak will be on whose channel?
I don't care who wants to take it. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I can do the goddess. That's fine.
Wait, okay, so next week when we do the Goddess Speak, it will be on Rachele's channel. And I just want everybody to make sure you go both to Cortney's and Rachele's channel and click that subscribe button so you are notified. And don't forget, Friday is the first Spill the Brew. I'm excited for that one as much as I was for this one, and also for Witches in Action, because the subject matter of that is very, very just wow. I can't help it.
Yeah. Are we doing the readings tomorrow night on your channel, honey?
Yeah, as long as I can get rid of some of this congestion, because here's why. I don't want to try to read tarot cards when I'm feeling ill, because then my energy is going to be shit. Just saying.
Right.
But tomorrow night.
So if she's feeling up to it, we will do it. If not, then next Thursday or whatever.
Because we plan on reading tarot cards for free for everybody. So you guys should join us for that at 7 p.m. tomorrow. If anything changes, I'll try to let everybody know ahead of time.
Okay.
I'll probably be on doing readings about 2 your guys' time.
Okay. Sounds good.
So go check out Cortney. Are you doing it on Facebook or YouTube?
YouTube.
Okay, so then go check out Cortney's YouTube page tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard. Wait, is that what time you're going?
2 your time.
Which would be about 7 p.m. her time.
Okay, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right? Did I say that correctly? All right.
Yes, you did.
Just making sure.
Anyone?
I'm telling you, I'm having some foggy brain. Well, I really appreciate everybody joining in. I hope that you liked the live and that we were able to give you lots of information. I really want to say thanks to Coastal and Lavender and B and Jared, because you guys are continuing to always give us feedback and always talk. And even if it is controversial sometimes, Coastal, it's still appreciated, because I mean, it is appreciated because that makes the conversation better and it gives us more things to talk about and way to go. So I just want to say a special thanks to everybody, and I guess that's it, and we'll talk soon, witches.
Thanks, guys.